Yes.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 2022 Virtual Indian MedDRA User Group meeting. The meeting will start now.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, and welcome to the user group meeting. Wish to welcome everybody. I'm sure we have an audience from mostly India and all over the world. So let's go ahead and get started. Before we get into the meetup or our agenda, we do have a couple of polling questions. If we go to the next slide, please. This is the information necessary to participate in these short polls. We'll have several of these throughout the webinar today. So if you can, well, I'll just pause here for a moment so that you can get yourself situated with the poll. Either use the QR code to scan, or you can go to pollev.com and then enter Anamika Dutta 561 as the username and click join. I'll pause here just for a couple of moments or moving on. Okay, why don't we go ahead and move on? So, my colleagues and I would like to welcome you to this meeting. My name is Brian O'Hare. I'm the Terminology Maintenance Manager. And with me, I have Dr. Samina Qureshi, who is one of our international medical officers. She is one of the physicians that's responsible for reviewing change requests. We also have Dr. Anamika Dutta, who is the medical officer on our team, and she is the local support for India. And Ms. Yoon-hee Do, who's a clinical associate and responsible for local support in Korea. So we have a nice agenda for you today. Go to the next slide. So we have a presentation on MedDRA versioning and two presentations on artificial intelligence and how MedDRA could be used with that technology. We'll also have a short MedDRA update, and then we'll have a short question and answer session. So let's start by going to the first poll. So where are you joining from today? So this meeting is obviously focused on Indian MedDRA users, but obviously being a virtual meeting, we can have people from different parts of the world. And all you need to do is click on the place that you're currently joining. Okay, very good. We got a lot of folks in Europe as well as India, some in Korea, and a couple of very early people in North America. Okay, very good. And then what type of organization do you work for? Are you a pharmaceutical company, CRO? Do you develop software? Are you with a regulatory agency? Okay. So it looks like we have a lot of CROs and pharma companies. And then within your organization, what is your main area of activity? Do you focus on clinical trials? Are you in the safety area, or do you develop software or some other type of activity? Okay, looks like we got the majority of focused on pharmacovigilance and drug safety. Okay. All right, now as a segue into our first topic on versioning, we did want to ask a versioning question to see what people did with respect to versioning MedDRA. So you've got 4 choices here. The first one is, do you just use a new version for coding new data and you don't record the existing data? Do you only identify the verbatim terms that are linked to non-current LLTs and just recode those? Or do you run an autocoder on existing data to code direct matches, also focus on non-current LLTs, recode those, and retain codes that are manually assigned with no impact? And then the last one is, do you do a complete recoding of existing data with the latest MedDRA version? Okay, looks like we got a split sort of, or people focused on the last two there. That's interesting. Okay. Very good. Well, then I'd like to introduce our next, our first speaker, Yayathi Mulya. And she is a senior clinical coder with IQVIA. She started her career in 2014 with graduating in pharmacy from Mumbai University. She also holds a postgraduate diploma in clinical research and management, and she's been a part of the IQVIA team since 2017. She handles multiple studies across different therapeutic areas as a lead coder and has experience working with multiple coding tools. So Yayathi, I'll leave it to you to start the next presentation.
Yeah. Did you mute yourself? Just a second.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Yayathi Mulya. Thank you, Brian, for introducing me. Now it's unmuted. Can you confirm if I'm audible?
Yeah, we can hear you. But we're not seeing your screen yet. Did you accept?
I apologize. There is a bit of a...
Yeah.
Right. I'll just share my screen.
Yes. Now we can see.
Okay. Okay, great. Hi, everyone. So thank you, Brian, for introducing me. Today, I would be presenting on the topic of MedDRA upversioning in my organization, which is IQVIA. Like Brian said, I've been working in IQVIA since 2017, and I have a total of 7 years of experience in this field. So let's start. In today's presentation, I would be covering the following points. First is overview of the dictionary upversioning process, little bit about prerequisites for the process of MedDRA upversioning. Then we'll talk about the general overview of IQVIA in-house tool and Brave. Next would be validation of the upversioning process, data review post upversioning, and finally some of the best practices that we can incorporate to ensure that the upversioning process goes on smoothly. So just to go over the general process, let's cover what exactly dictionary upversioning entails. So MSSO, or Maintenance and Support Services Organization, releases new dictionary versions every March and September in a year. The user community for MedDRA can provide significant inputs via the subscriber change request facility. So these inputs are incorporated and they are made available when the dictionaries are updated for study on a regular basis. Having an updated dictionary version ensures, one, that there are new medical concepts as well as changes to the existing concepts are added, which means there would be addition of new diagnosis or symptoms or changes in how the term maps to its hierarchy. Second would be outdated and obsolete terms are not available during the final data analysis. And third would be more specific codes are available for better data capture. Let me just shift this over here. Okay. Okay. So next topic is prerequisites for upversioning. Essentially, what all do we need in place to go ahead with the upversioning process? So first and foremost is the sponsor license verification. Until and unless the sponsor has a valid MedDRA dictionary license, the upversioning cannot be done. As a valid license indicates that the sponsor is able to receive the latest dictionary version and the updates that come along with that version. This means that the sponsor should have valid licenses for the study's current dictionary version, as well as have the validity that should extend for the time the latest dictionary version is available. Second is documentation. So upversioning in IQVIA is always based on sponsor's requests. So there should be documents reflecting the sponsor, reflecting that the sponsor has requested this upversioning, either on an ad hoc basis or if this is something that is predetermined at the start of a study. So if this is established at the start of the study, we have documents in place that documents all this information. But if it's a ad hoc request, or if the sponsor has requested dictionary upversioning at a later stage of the study, we would have this incorporated in the study documents and have the sponsor's approval on the documents. So like the famous saying that we following clinical research, if it is not documented, it did not happen. Third is the budget. So before we proceed with the dictionary upversion, we need to make sure that the budget is accounted for with respect to the additional step of dictionary upversion. It's good to ensure that there is a budget assigned to this additional task of upversioning, if in case it was not included in the original budget. And fourth is to ensure that the desired dictionary version is rolled out and available before the actual step of upversioning. By rolled out, I mean the dictionary version is loaded into the coding tool and it's available for use for the particular study at the time of the in-tool upversioning step. So this is about prerequisites for upversioning. Right. So dictionary upversioning in IQVIA in-house tool. So IQVIA has established an in-house coding tool that it utilizes for some of its studies. For the upversioning process in the in-house coding tool, the general process is basically consisting of 5 steps. So there is something called as a change request form that we have in place in our organization, which would need to be updated by either the data manager or the coder. And this will then be sent to the programmer and sign it. Next, the programmer provides a system-generated difference listing. So this difference listing reflects all the changes between the current and the dictionary version, and it's made available for review by the programmer, and this is reviewed by the data manager or the coder. Third would be to ensure that no one is working on the study during the time of upversioning. So it has happened in the past where the dictionary process is in progress and someone from the study team has been actively working on the study, and which has caused issues in how the dictionary upversioning took place. So we just ensure that no one is working on the study during the time of the upversioning. Next would be to make use of MVAT. MVAT is MedDRA Version Analysis Tool. This is to provide dictionary update impact before the actual upversion, and to verify the difference listing that is provided by the internal programmer that I mentioned in the previous step is accurate. And finally, the dictionary update process in itself is a simple 2-step process that occurs within the tool itself. So there is, before we come to this, there is also an issue log that would need to be updated in case of any issues or deficiencies that might come during the dictionary upgrade process. So the coder who's working on the dictionary upgrade would be logging in any issues in the issue log document, and this would then be, these issues would then be worked upon by the programmer in conjunction with the coder until and unless all issues are resolved. So when all these issues are resolved, only then would we consider that the upgrade has been successful. I mentioned MBAT in the previous slide. So just to provide an overview, what is MVAT? So MedDRA version analysis tool is a web-based tool to assist MedDRA users in transitioning their data and symptoms, systems from one version to in that we make use of data impact report tab. We have to select the dictionary versions, both the current as well as the target, and we also make sure that the starting MedDRA version in the data impact report tab is older than the ending MedDRA version. Why do we use MVAT? So it provides dictionary upgrade impact before the upversioning. It ensures the difference listing provided by the internal programmer is correct, and it also gives an idea of terms that would fall out and the recoding impact that this process would have. So this was about the dictionary upversioning process in the IQVIA in-house tool. I also selected another coding tool, MedDRA Rave, and the reason why I select this is because it is one of the most commonly used coding tool that we have in place today. So let's also go over the general upversioning process in the MedDRA Rave coding tool. So upversioning in Rave essentially includes two steps. One is migration of synonym list, which is also called as synonym upversion, and two, in-tool dictionary upversion, which is also called as study upversion. So for those who are not aware of synonym lists are list of terms or coding decisions that a medical coder can record for a study, so that the next time the same verbatim is encountered, it gets auto-coded via the synonym list. So that eliminates one step of manual coding. Before the upversioning to a new medical dictionary version, it's crucial to upversion its synonym list from the current to the new dictionary version, that is from the source version to the target dictionary version. The synonym list upversion process analyzes the differences between the source and target dictionary versions, and it flags all the changes that there are between these two versions. If there are no changes, all the synonyms are migrated completely. However, in cases where there are changes, the coder must manually reconcile the differences by either clicking on drop synonym or accept suggestion. So these are the two options that we have whenever there are reconciling issues while migrating the synonym list. So the synonyms that are dropped will appear in the task list of the Rave coder again for recoding. And this reconciling would need to be done for all synonym terms that were not migrated. So if all the synonym terms have been migrated successfully, that's not an issue. We're good to go, but then there would be cases where synonym lists do not get migrated because there are changes in how it gets mapped, or if there are LLTs that are dropped, if there are changes to how LLT maps to a PT, so on and so forth. So all these reconciling issues would need to be looked upon by the coder, and the coder would need to reconcile this manually. So once this is all done, that means 100% of all the synonym terms are reconciled. The next step is to click on migrate synonyms. Once synonym migration is complete is when we would proceed with the study upversioning. So for study upversioning, the coder would need to go to a study impact analysis through the administration dropdown on the main coder page. For the source dictionary information, there would be two fields that would need to be updated. One is the source dictionary information. Another is the target dictionary information. So source would be study and the current dictionary that the study is utilizing, and the target would have the desired dictionary version that has to be upversioned to, along with the upversioned synonym list that we did from the previous step. Next is to generate report through study impact analysis. There is also a facility to generate report through the study impact analysis. This report details if and how the existing coding decisions will change when you migrate a study from one dictionary version to another. So once this is done, we can go ahead and migrate the study from the older version to the newer version. So there is a challenge. Once the study upversion step is initiated, it cannot be cancelled or interrupted. So it must run to completion. And thus we need to be very, very sure about initiating the version process. During the migration process, when the study is being migrated, the system suspends all coding activity from the study. So any verbatims that are entered during this process are rejected until the migration is complete. So this was about dictionary upversioning in general. So the above steps conclude the process of upversioning a study within the tool, but the process of completing an upversion doesn't finish here. There is always scope to miss out or have either human or system errors, and so it's absolutely crucial to have validation of the upversioning process and also review the data that is impacted by the upversioning. Let's talk a little bit more about what does validation and review include. So validation is performed after upversioning is complete by documenting the changes before and after the upversioning process. So in IQVIA, it's standard practice to complete the validation within 5 days of upversioning. And the validation process includes documenting screenshots indicating the older version with the number of uncoded terms and newer version with the number of uncoded terms. This is done to ensure that all the terms in the study were impacted by the process, and it also gives a picture of the fallout terms and how much recoding would be required. Next would be to identify a newly added or modified term in the latest dictionary. So we have to identify any changes or any new term or any changes that has been done to the previously existing term in the latest dictionary, and we have to perform coding post the dictionary upversioning process is done. This is done to validate that the process has been successful, right? Because the newly added term would only be available in the latest dictionary version and not the previous one. So that's just one more step of validating the whole upversioning process. Next would be coding reports. So coding reports are generated to document that the expected outcome is achieved. By that, I mean the latest dictionary version should reflect in all the coding reports or outputs from the study. Let's talk about full review. So why do we do full review of the coding data? So full review of the coding data is performed to ensure terms are accurately and coded throughout the time frame. Full review post upversioning is usually performed by a senior reviewer who identifies terms that could possibly be better coded using newly added or updated terms per the new dictionary version. So there would have been some case where the study has been ongoing for a long time, and there were terms that were entered, but we didn't have a specific code in our dictionary version to assign to, and so it was assigned a less specific or a general code. But after the dictionary upversioning, we realized that there are more specific codes available to better capture that term. So all these terms are identified by the reviewer who performs the full review of the data, and they provide the comments which are then sent to the study lead coder, who would be responsible for making the changes per the reviewer's suggestion. Why do we do validation and review? So validation post upversioning ensures that every output of the relevant study reflects the newer version successfully, and review post upversioning ensures that the newly added and updated terms are captured accurately and consistently throughout the study's time frame. This was about the whole process of upversioning. Next, we'll just come to the best practices. So the best practices, some of the practices that we can involve to make the whole upversioning process goes on smoothly and without errors. One is to ensure licenses are verified before the upversioning process is initiated. Two, to ensure no one is working on the study during the upversioning process to make sure the process is smooth. Third, three, ensure validation is complete post upversioning, and fourth, ensure post upversioning review is complete. And also the review comments that have been provided by the senior reviewer to the coders have been actioned. So that this comes to the end of my presentation. Please let me know if there are any questions regarding the presentation, and I would be happy to address them. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we've got some questions for you.
Okay.
The first question is, how do you handle non-current terms coded in previous version?
So non-current terms are identified by comparing. We pull a listing that provides the non-current terms available in the versions that we are using in the study currently. And before the data review is done, we identify these terms and perform the recoding.
Yep, thank you. And I think these two questions are quite related to each other, so I'm going to read it out two in a row. What reports do you use for the validation full review after up version? And the next question is, which report do you refer to from RAVED to validate whether up version is successfully done and all previously coded terms are migrated to newer targeted version?
So in RAVE, we pull the data listing. So before we go ahead with the upversioning, we take a note or document the screenshot of how many terms are there in the study. And post upversioning, also we make sure that the count matches between what was previously seen. And the data listings from the EDC, wherein you see the dictionary version up, reflected, is what we make use for validation as well as review.
Yep, thank you. And since the time allows, I have some more questions. If there are 4 studies on the same URL, do you need to stop working on all 4 studies or only the one undergoing upversioning?
If there are these 4 studies make use of different synonym lists, then we don't need to stop work on that. But if they are sharing the same synonym list, then we will need to stop working on all of them.
Thank you again for a clear answer. And this question is actually coming from us, MSSO. Which embed report do you find the most useful while upversioning?
MVAT report, actually, I work in a team that is not making use of MVAT, so this would be better targeted to the team that do make use of MVAT. So I could run this question with them and have an answer to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I think we can now move on to next agenda, Anamika.
Yeah, thank you, Yayati. That was a great presentation, and I'm sure our users are going to benefit a lot from the best practices that you have shared at your organization. So moving on to the next section, so the way in which a computer system can copy the way a human mind thinks has been a topic of great interest in recent times, and our next section would revolve around that. And we would learn from our next 2 speakers how they are training their computer systems to behave like real-time coders. So having said that, I would like to launch a quick poll. I'm sorry, I think. So we would like to know if you have implemented AI solutions with coding at your organization. Okay, that's interesting. So, so we do have 53% of you, 50% of you who are telling us, like, I think I should wait for a few more minutes. Looks like people are still voting. So 4% of you have already used AI. That's interesting to know. And then some of you have not implemented, and like 38% of you are planning to implement in the near future, and 58% of you are telling me that you have not used AI. So that's an interesting thing, and thank you for sharing the statistics, and that's great. So with this, I would like to, kind of call upon our first speaker on this topic, Mr. Kuldeep Moore. Kuldeep is a product manager at ClearRight Information Systems LLC, and is actively involved in product development, designing product enhancements based on client requirements and prototypes. Kuldeep has more than 14 years of work experience in medical coding, dictionary management, and clinical data management as a client account lead and subject matter expert. Prior to ClearRight, Kuldeep served in the project management and technical support roles in Cognizant, Parexel, and TCS. Kuldeep holds a master's degree in pharmacy from NMIMS University in Mumbai. Welcome, Kuldeep, and the stage is all yours.
Hello,
Kuldeep,
Kuldeep, do you maybe?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I was on. Yeah,
yeah, you were on mute.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me as one of the presenter. Hello, good evening, everyone. I'm Kuldeep Moore, product manager at ClearRight Information System. ClearRight is a leading technology service provider in a coding industry. I'm here today to speak about artificial intelligence in medical coding. The discussion will revolve around the basics of AI and ML, goals to implement, use with examples and metrics. I would like to go theoretically today by considering the interest of the time. The medical coding has been tricky and time consuming. It is because of the inherent data, complexity, and variations. The ever-growing number of the clinical trials is being reported with increasing number of medical events. It brings forth the necessity of automation in medical coding. So it is important to define what is exactly AI and ML and what is it correlate with the context of medical coding. Artificial intelligence is nothing but the machine stimulates the human intelligence process that includes learning, reasoning, and self-correction. The goal of AI is to build the machine that can understand the requirement of human and make the decision in the same way as a human do, so that the variety of the data get structured and stratified based upon the different parameters like historical conclusions, the context, condition, qualitative and quantitative assessments, etc. Machine learning is a set of algorithms that use for discovering interesting relationship between various variables that are available in larger data sets. It helps machine to mimic certain capability of human, like extraction of required information and intellectual association with new uncategorized data. As we considered earlier that data complexity, variations, and volume boost the need of AI and ML in a coding system. So AI and ML-based approach smoothly considers the variation in disease conditions, disease qualifiers, the sequence of the word, etc. Hence, it handles the increasing volume of unstructured data. The system can discover the coding pattern and identify the most appropriate match from the dictionary by using the term-specific learning on the coding convention, by using the coding convention. This methodology helps or enhances the coder capacity, resolution time, and the coding consistency. It also improves the performance and the experience of the medical coder. So now in this slide, we are going to touch base about the goals of AI in coding. The basic goal is to improve the auto coding hit. It will be improved by defining certain algorithms within a system, which helps to understand system how to identify the nearest match term. Next one is to train coding tool by using coding algorithms and machine learning with the help of auto-encoded data. And the third one is develop term-specific rules by using client coding conventions so that the coding throughput can be increased and out of the box coding can be performed. So let's deep dive to understand the AI implementation in coding tool. Coding tool uses AI to create the virtual assistants. It provides coding suggestion based upon the algorithm. Also, it can be customized to increase the auto coding hit rate. AI analyzes the coding pattern to restore the correct information that allows end users to assess the variation in disease progression like relapse, remit, progression. Then second one is disease condition like acute or chronic, etc. The disease qualifier like flare-up, aggravation, worsening. For the clinical trial stratification and diagnostic, AI mimics human thinking capability and behavior by evaluating previously coded data and the human action. It also allows machine to learn from the data without being programmed openly. Machine learning allows coding tool to learn various parameters including disease, its symptoms, coder behavior, biochemical and pathological variables. With the help of specially designed softwares, the system can develop effective learning and categorizes it by using the organizational coding convention, coding patterns, so that system can learn and identify most appropriate match from the dictionary or the synonym list or the from the available data. AI needs machine learning that enables coded data, sensitivity and specificity. As we aware about as we move on next one, we are aware about the coding workflow. AI involvement is established as specifically at two steps. First one is at the step of auto coding, and second one is in the manual review of suggestion that is provided by the coding tool and its approval. While performing auto coding, coding tool uses dictionary terms and synonym list to identify the better match term for the reported verbatim. Here, AI accesses the text pattern from the verbatim and categorizes the data based upon the nearest match term. Ultimately, it helps to optimize the coder performance. Such auto coding can further enhance and categorize by using term-specific rules. The company-specific coding conventions can be converted into the term-specific rules within the coding algorithm. Term-specific rules increases the auto-encoding hit. It improves auto-coding hit, improves the results of machine learning. The fallout terms from the auto-coding can be handled by using self-correcting or coding algorithms. Also, adaptive learning of the coding tool adds an extra edge while providing the closest match term from the dictionary. It improves the turnaround time to process the verbatim, and it also improves the quality of coding. Moving on to the next slide. So we are here now. It is time to explore the use of machine learning on a coding system. As we discussed earlier, AI needs machine learning to intensify the sensitivity and specificity of the coded data. It requires continuous teaching to enhance the algorithm and the quality of the suggested coding, the suggested dictionary codes. The volume of the training data plays a vital role to populate the nearest match coding suggestion. Then, how exactly ML can be used in the coding system? I would like to give two ways to think about which categorizes the algorithm that you may come across in a clinical coding field. The first one is grouping of algorithm by their similarity in a form or a function, like grouping of similar verbatim or grouping of LLTs, disease conditions, etc. The second grouping would be a grouping of algorithms by learning styles, like previously coded data would be one of the examples. Both approaches are useful to focus on the grouping of the algorithm. ML training data for a coding involves pairs of coded terms and available dictionary codes. The ML training data would be available in different forms. The first one is dictionary. which is the standard, which is a standard set, which is a standard data sets where terms and codes are available. The next one is synonym list. It is nothing but approved manual codes by client or a reviewer that supports the standard code, data sets. And the last one is auto-coded data based upon the dictionary and synonym list match. So these three training data would help to maximize the machine learning. I would like to take an example to demonstrate how exactly this ML works. So on your right-hand side, you can see the the reported term is develop phimosis at the age of 45. The MedDRA does not identify direct match LLT, that is phimosis at the age of 45. However, MedDRA has specific LLT like phimosis, which is linked to congenital shock, and the second one is acquired phimosis, which does not link to the congenital shock. MedDRA does not define the occurrence of phimosis at specific age group. However, company-specific coding conventions helps here, and helps here to find the appropriate LLT to choose. In such conventions, such kind of coding conventions can be converted into term-specific rules by developing appropriate algorithms where parameters like age, sex, etc. can be used. And this approach can increase the auto-coding hit, which improves the search results from the machine learning. So now I would like to put forward few examples to see the feasibility of AI and ML. These are the few examples, but I'm not restricted, like we should not restrict to these many examples only. However, in the interest of time, I took few concepts or conventions from the learning. So first concept is multiple medical concepts. So in which I've given two examples. First one is chronic spongiatic dermatitis with keratinocytes. Here we know, like with the experience, we know that these are the completely different medical conditions. So we can go ahead and split this term. The second term is the possible kidney blockage, left hydronephrosis secondary to pelvic adenopathy. Here also, based the company conventions plays an important role. How you want to perform the coding. So you would like to split, you would like to query for the underlying diagnosis, or you want to code each term separately. So in these examples, how ML and AI will help. So I would like to emphasize on, in these examples, coding tool can provide a nearest match LLT based upon available coding conventions that are reported in a verbatim. So the AI and ML going to identify split the term, read each term, it provides the LLTs so that coder can go and see the hierarchy. If it is linked, then we can identify what is the symptom, what is the underlying diagnosis, or all are the symptoms, based upon which it helps coder to take a decision either to code or query the term. The second one is obvious spell errors. So there are two examples where spell errors are given for cholelithiasis, and the second is cholelithiasis. So in both conditions, the coding tool can assess the spell errors and provide the nearest match LLD from the terminology. The third example I would like to give as a sequence of the verbatim. So you can see there are two examples where the sequence is different, but the tool can able to understand what exactly words are given. The AI and ML going to split these verbatums in fragments, will understand the pattern and find the nearest match term from the dictionary. The next one is qualitative assessment reported in this. So in the qualitative assessment, the first term is plasma cell myeloma progression. We have nearest match code, that is multiple myeloma progression. Here logic is the LLT multiple myeloma linked to the PT plasma cell myeloma. Here we can capture the all necessary information by selecting an appropriate LLT, that is multiple myeloma progression, because here progression as well as the main event is going to capture. So this is something human behavior that can be understand, or that can be feed. Such kind of information can be feed to the system by coding algorithms. Coding algorithm can distinguish the verbatim and understand the disease condition based upon the qualitative assessment, and tools will provide a nearest match option. So, and next one is about the assessment of the abbreviations. the abbreviations can be read out. Like we have standard abbreviation list which is provided by the MedDRA. This is one of the source, but tool can process such kind of abbreviations and provide the nearest match abbreviation and provide the appropriate match from the dictionary. So these are the few examples from the pool of mechanism. However, several other techniques like tokenization or stop word usage or the stemming or part of speech tagging, etc., can be used to assess and analyze the data and to provide a better match for the coder to perform an accurate coding. So I'm going to move on next one, which is very important in how exactly this helps when system is linked with AI or using an AI or not using an AI. Till now, we have discussed the theoretical part. I would like to showcase the numbers that enables the businesses to introduce and establish a smarter machines and advanced modeling. Such methods provide greater efficiency and effectiveness to the coding department. Based upon my experience with different coding tools, several studies, different kind of study models and study data, I would like to conclude that 40 to 60% of the data can be auto-coded without AI if you are maintaining your synonym list appropriately or diligently. Here, you still required to put 40 to 60% of effect to perform rest of the uncoded data so these efforts can be increased if your synonym list or coded data is having errors or if it is unorganized. With the help of AI and ML implementation, manual coding efforts can lower down to 5%, as those 30 or 35% uncoded data can be resolved by using accurate coding suggestions. Also, adaptive learning and self-correcting algorithms can help coders to locate the invalid codes, fallout verbatim, so that the outputs can be the coded outputs can be increased. Moving on to the next slide. So this brings us to the end of our presentation. So I would like to summarize by saying that we are determined and dedicated our efforts for the development of newer technology based upon AI and ML and its integration with the coding tool, which augments the auto-coding yield. The term-specific rules with the advanced coding algorithms increases the direct match hit and improves the machine learning. At the same time, we must check the consistency of coding across the clinical trials and its programs so that the accuracy throughput can be increased. AI/ML techniques in coordination with the human efforts can optimize the quality of the data and the processing time and the first time resolution. This ends to the end of the session. I would like to thank you all for taking time and attending this session. I would like to thank you, MSSO team, for giving me this opportunity to speak with you all. I can be reached on the given mail ID if you have any questions. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We've got some questions for you. The question first I have is, how do you ensure what machine learning is correct? Like, yeah.
So as I said in my presentation, machine learning is nothing but how your data is training to adapt a new learning. So we are cross-checking the results on periodical basis. The outputs that are given from the machines on a regular basis, we find out the fallouts and make it the algorithms get corrected.
Yes, thank you. And I also have a question. And can you elaborate a little bit more about converting coding conventions to term-specific rules? For example, you took example about zymosis. In this reported term case is acquired zymosis is maybe the right choice, but not every MedDRA term has demographic information in front, so only some of them has it, like as an exception. Yeah. So how does it fit into machine learning and the algorithm you explained? Can you explain a little bit more? Yeah.
Yeah. So the age, the example which I have took, it is basically the age is mentioned in that verbatim. So we train a verbatim like what is the age group that we are having. Again, it requires client inputs definitely as a coding tool system, like as a we are not the decision maker. We are taking the inputs from the client. So based upon their coding conventions, we are designing in such a way that which term will help to identify most nearest match. So in this case, as you correctly said, the phimosis was the correct one if the age is not mentioned in that verbatim. So this is the way that we are handling the terms.
Yeah, thank you for your answer.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we can save some of the questions for later, although we have some time. But let's move on to the next agenda. Hello, Anamika, and thank you, Kuldeep.
Yeah. Yep. I'm sorry. I think I started talking on mute and then realized I was on mute. So thank you, Kuldeep. That was a great presentation, and thank you for educating us about MIN. It's very interesting the way your organization is handling data, and I think that's a way forward. So congratulations, and it's great to see that certain technologies can really make the job of a coder very easy. So with this, I would like to kind of invite our next speaker, who is Dr. Ram Prasad Palona, Associate Vice President, AI and ML Automation at Eris Global. Dr. Ram Prasad holds a PhD in Artificial Intelligence, Computer Vision, and has 28 years of experience in software engineering in R&D and commercial product development. He has several research publications and patents focused on analytics and cognitive applications to his credit. And prior to joining Eris Global, he has held leadership positions with companies such as InnoMinds and MicroStrategy. Welcome, Dr. Ram Prasad, and the floor is all yours now.
Let me unmute you just a second. Yeah, can you resume your presentation?
Can you see my screen now?
Yes, and we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity. I'm the lead for AI/ML technologies at Eris Global, and our mission is to take advantage of AI/ML technologies for the most efficient pharmacovigilance use cases. With that, let me jump in. Thanks to Kuldeep, who was the previous presenter. He has explained the value of ML and how ML works and how the coding happens in a clinical trial setting or other settings to code very well. So I don't have to go deep into how ML works. I will explain the use case here in the pharmacovigilance context. We get safety case reports. A typical case is the SIOMS, which has patient details, products, and event descriptions. And we use NLP, which is natural language processing, to identify both the structured data and case attributes within the unstructured content of that report. Most of the time, the reports include something called event description or a narrative that is described by the reporter in free text, which includes details of the patient, the adverse events that have been found, and associated products. So those all would have been extracted using NLP, and then those terms have to be coded with the meta coding conventions adopted by the companies. So different companies have different conventions, and they also have different areas of specialization. So they probably will have subsections of MedDRA that they get more frequently than others. But then the coding algorithm has to be smart enough to learn those conventions and code them appropriately, right? So this is where intelligent MedDRA coding comes in. Typically, a product that doesn't have the AI/ML incorporated uses MedDRA search as well as the synonym search, what's called the VTA, verbatim term report, term archive, actually VTA stands for that. So we search for the reported terms in MedDRA as well as the synonym lists. And if it is not found there, it's tough luck. You can't auto code. They will be sent for manual coding. Typically, that's the workflow. With intelligent MedDRA coding service that we have implemented, the ones that are not found a direct match in MedDRA or VTA, they will be sent for intelligent MedDRA coding. Now, the intelligent MedDRA coding has machine learning incorporated to learn from historical coding that has been going on in the respective company, right? So we take the historical coding of all the reported terms that were there for the past few years, actually, and train these machine learning models to code the same way they have been coding in their past. So that's the workflow. I hope everyone understood that. And when it comes to pharmacovigilance, especially the spontaneous cases, as opposed to clinical cases, we get a lot of informal adverse event descriptions. Sometimes they come from patients, sometimes from social media also. These days, you need to scour the social media to find a lot more adverse events associated with the company's products. So we are getting cases from social media. And verbatims like this, right? Stomach bug, felt like I'm dying, not feeling like baby is moving anymore. Brain turned to mush. These are very, very common, right? And we need to ensure they're coded the right way. And similarly, there will be abbreviations used, spelling mistakes, ambiguities. The language itself is very informal, so there will be a lot of ambiguity. On top of it, they come from all over the world. So the local language has to be translated typically to the global systems language, typically it's English. So those translation errors also become a problem. I gave here an example of that, the last one, and sometimes pick-piku, right? So first we didn't know what is pick-piku. And then when we looked at the source language, we understand that's specific to some European language, which when it is translated, translates to twitching, and there is a direct matching to that. So but then the system has to be smart enough to match that as well. Medication errors like impossible to use or running out of medication, all kinds of medication errors. Someone says, I would like to return it for a refund. That's a product quality complaint. So all those have to be also coded right. So this is what poses additional complexity in coding for spontaneous cases. I'm showing here a typical system with direct matching with the MedDRA dictionary as well as synonyms. Generally, information retrieval system like Elasticsearch is used, where the reported term is cleaned off the stop words like it, and then the rest of it is tokenized and matched. And there may be smarter like the fuzzy matching, right, to account for matching in the presence of spelling errors also. And then LLT is produced corresponding to the reported term. This generally does not bring right LLTs for most of the cases I had put in, things like this, because they don't find a direct match at all, neither in MedDRA nor in the synonym list. So in the absence of that, one quick way to get ML incorporated into this algorithm is to find LLTs that are close in terms of terms with the common with the reported term. So that's the information retrieval using MedDRA dictionary alone, right? And then whatever shortlist is found, those that have similar or closely related terms here, they are sent to a matcher, right? And the matcher is trained using historical data set of reported terms and the codes in the historical database. It is trained to match and produce a score for this short list of LLTs that were found to be close to these reported term. And that gives you a ranked list of LLTs. We can just pick the top one, or the top 5 can be displayed to the manual reviewer who can pick what is the right match. So that's one use case. We found fair success with this one. Generally, the problem here is that there are quite a few verbatims that have to be coded to LLTs that don't have anything in common, right? So there are no words in common between "I don't really like the taste" to "product complaint." Strange smell has to be coded to "product odor abnormal," even though these smell and odor are very close in meaning. You just can't match them if you use Elasticsearch alone. So these are typical problems of the system that has information retrieval only. One quick improvement, though, we could obtain by saying not just bring me the LLTs, but also include the verbatims of the past historical terms, right? Synonym list. So here you search for this, not just within the MedDRA LLTs, also synonyms that have close, not just direct matches, right? You're bringing, if there is a throat term, there is a bothers term, within the past synonyms, past coded terminologies. And those are also brought into the shortlist, and then this ML matcher can rank them from top to bottom, what is the closest match to it, based on the past conventions. Works this similarly, but this is far superior to this one, which does MedDRA LLTs alone, because now the previous reported terms are also brought in for similarity of wording. However, as I pointed out, the words may be not even existing in the respective correctly coded term. So in that case, you have to use meaning, right? You cannot base it on just string match or word match. You need to have semantic match. So that's what we use next, instead of just bringing the words match. So we use semantic algorithm to bring what are the closest previous LLTs or synonyms that were coded before. So we get that short list, and then the ML ranker is again trained the same way. It is no different, and it is able to bring most closely matching one out of this shortlist. Now that we have semantic shortlisting also in this, so you get really good at getting the right term, right? This is what we got the best performance using this algorithm. So it also gives you the score. Essentially, this match score is what I put in the parentheses here, throat irritation at the top with 94.5%. So using that confidence, actually, you can also threshold it and say, if it is below certain threshold, you can say even with semantic match, we couldn't find it. So that's also possible. So here I'm comparing the performance we are getting with just Elasticsearch only versus the intelligent MedDRA coding. This is with some test data that is gotten from the production data set, but eliminating all the duplicates and leaving out only representative data set. And if we look at top ranked versus, look at this, top ranking is pretty low %, but if you say I display to a manual reviewer who can pick from the top 10, then the performance goes up much higher. If you include top 20, it's even better. And using the last one I described, semantic matching, we have put into production in one of our customers. And for those cases that didn't include the translation issues, we have been getting pretty close to the desired percentage for auto coding. These are all auto coded cases with the respective correctness of the coding. Right, along with it, actually, does the NLP performance also affects the coding performance? And I'm showing the correct extraction of adverse events using NLP. So unless this is high, you can't get a really high score here. So that's the production performance today, and we are very happy with the performance. We keep continuously improving these algorithms, but today we are at a stage it is usable in production. So that's the last of my slides. I would like to take any questions now.
Thank you for your presentation. It's very interesting, and also some of the verbatim examples like piku piku, I didn't know it meant switching. Or we got some comments about your examples as well. But I think our audience tend to submit their questions, well, after they listen to the whole presentation. So while I'm sorting all these questions coming on, let's move on to the next agenda, to MedDRA updates. Yeah,
Sure.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so hello everyone, I'm Dr. Samina Qureshi, and I'd like to, of course, first of all, thank all of my previous presenters for such informative presentations. And now I'd like to conclude the session with a few MedDRA updates regarding some of the initiatives the MSSO has been working on. Next slide, please. Okay, so some of the updates and the topics I'm going to cover in my brief presentation are some of the updates regarding the points to consider documents, as well as some initiatives and projects the MSSO has been working on regarding MedDRA mappings, and a brief update on MedDRA IT tool updates, as well as some new MedDRA trainings that the MSSO has been developing and already are in production, as well as we'll brief you on some upcoming user group meetings. Okay, so let's start off with the update regarding the points to consider documents, or commonly known as the PTC documents. Okay, so this was basically a result of various user feedbacks. The user community was having difficulty locating all of our PTC documents in one spot on the website. So basically, starting this month, all of our points to consider documents are going to be posted in one convenient location on our support documentation page on our MedDRA.org website. So in this one, under this one support documentation tab, you will easily find all of the full versions of the MedDRA term selection points to consider document, as well as the data retrieval presentation points to consider document. Now, the translated condensed versions of these documents will also be available as applicable. In addition, the other points to consider document, the companion document, which many of you are familiar with, will also be located very readily available for you under this support documentation tab. And on the next slide, this is just a screenshot just to show you exactly the location on our website where this can be found. As you can see, the topmost tab on how to use, you push that radio button, and then you see support documentation. And as you see, all of the points to consider, a term selection, data retrieval presentation, as well as the companion document can be easily found now. So hopefully our user community will find this very useful, and we did listen based on their feedback. Now, this is an example, just the screenshot for the English language. For all the other supported languages, it's similarly placed. Next slide, please. Now, the points to consider companion document, a little bit details on this. As you know, this companion document details and sort of focuses on primarily medication errors, product quality issues, as well as data quality issues. Currently, we have just completed a new fourth section focusing on product manufacturing and quality systems issues, and now that currently is being reviewed with our ICH experts. And this release 3.0 of the companion document with this new fourth section will be available in the second quarter of 2022. Now, originally, we had expected to have completed this by the fourth quarter of 2021, but as you all know, the pandemic sort of took priority over all other matters, and therefore this is somewhat delayed but nevertheless will be available in the second quarter of this year. Next slide, please. Okay, so something very close to my heart is MedDRA mapping. Due to increased data interoperability, as well as having data from various disparate data sources, there's a great interest in mapping of MedDRA with various terminologies. So I'll just speak on the two initiatives or the projects that we've been working on here at the MSSO. Next slide, please. Okay, so the first of all, we've been working on the SNOMED CT MedDRA mapping, and many of you may be familiar that this production release was done last year in April 2021. Since the launch in April 2021, we have added an additional 250 new terms, and these were requested through the user community, and they were requested through the online change request tool named MapCR. So all of these new additional terms, as well as the map of the SNOMED CT to MedDRA, is posted as supplemental maps and is available on our downloads page on our website, meddra.org. And just keep in mind that this particular mapping is bidirectional. So it goes from SNOMED CT term to a MedDRA term, as well as a MedDRA term to a SNOMED CT term. So it's bidirectional. And here, below on this slide is a screenshot of where you can access this mapping. You'll need, of course, a user ID and password to access this. Next slide, please. Now, the first release, as I mentioned, was in April 2021. The next release is scheduled to be next month, April 2022. Now, this bidirectional mapping is based on MedDRA version 24.1, which was the September release last year, as well as the January 2022 release of SNOMED CT International. Now, many of you are aware that the release schedules for both of these terminologies are somewhat different. MedDRA is released every March and September, whereas SNOMED CT is released every month, with the major releases being performed in January and June. Now, this new mapping will include the new map terms with every version release, or the one that's occurring in April 2022. It will include new map terms. Of course, this includes the relevant COVID-19 terms that have been added since. Now, when we say changes resulting from version updates in both terminologies, for MedDRA, as you know, this means all the LLTs from the prior version that have now become non-current will be assigned with current LLT terms. So that's one of the things that happens when there's version updates. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's another type of mapping that the MSSO has been working on, the ICD to MedDRA mapping. Now, as supported by the MedDRA Management Committee, we have completed the initial development of a unidirectional mapping. So this only goes in one direction, from an ICD-10 term to a MedDRA term. This has been completed by us, but currently it's being reviewed and has not been released yet. We expect it to be released in a few months this year, it may be in 2022, perhaps in second quarter. Now, along with this, the MedDRA Management Committee has also supported the exploration, along with the WHO, with the development and maintenance of a mapping between ICD-11 as well. So we are also exploring a mapping of ICD-11 and MedDRA. Next slide, please. Okay, so this, a little bit more detail on the ICD-10 map. So the draft map is based on the ICD-10 International Core version 2019 and the MedDRA version 23.1. So just to sort of do a deeper dive into this mapping, from the 22 chapters of ICD-10, we mapped approximately 2 chapters were not mapped. So let's talk about the 2 chapters that were not mapped. And the reason they were not mapped is because the terms, the types of terms that were in these 2 chapters were out of the scope of MedDRA. Whereas the other 20 chapters, basically chapter 1 through 19, did fit the scope of MedDRA because it basically was around organ-specific diseases, signs and symptoms, injury and poisonings, which are within the scope. And chapter 22 of ICD was sort of a catch-all for codes for special purposes, and this is where we mapped the relevant COVID-19 terms, which are housed in this particular chapter. So overall, of the ICD-10 chapters mapped, there were approximately 9,500 terms that were mapped between ICD-10 to MedDRA. Next slide, please. And this is just a very high-level overview of what the sample of the draft map will look like. Since it's unidirectional, on the left-hand side, you have the ICD-10 chapter name, the specific ICD code of that particular ICD term, and then that ICD term is mapped to the closest conceptual match MedDRA LLT, along with the 8-digit numeric LLT code, as well as the SOC that LLT resides in. So this is just an overview of what that draft map looks like currently. Next slide, please. Okay, now that we've talked about the MedDRA maps, let's talk a little bit about our developments or our updates regarding our MedDRA IT tools. Okay, again, this is a result of user feedback and user input and suggestions. Currently, as you know, the MedDRA self-service application answers various questions, common questions that users have, very easy to find. For example, you forgot what your MedDRA ID is, or you don't know or remember who the MedDRA point of contact is in your organization. You can turn to this SSA and immediately find the answer to that. But we've made some updates, so now that you can have even additional use of the SSA app, you can find a multi-language user interface, so not just English, but as you can see in this screenshot, it has all the various MedDRA supported languages available, and you can use that. As well, you can access various training certificates for both your virtual and face-to-face training sessions that you attend. You can access the certificates here on your own. Now, this is expected to be ready for use and to be deployed in the second quarter of 2022. As you know, for the past 2 years, because of the pandemic, most of our webinar, our trainings have been virtual. And currently, what we do is after the completion of the session or the webinar training, we take about 3 days and then we email to the registrant their certificate. So after second quarter 2022, you will be able to do that on your own in that self-service app. So hopefully users will find this very handy. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so now we've done some more training offerings for you based on your user feedback. So let's talk about some of the new upcoming trainings that we have in line for you. Next slide, please. Okay, so as I mentioned, this was a very frequently requested topic. Time and again, after our post-training attendee surveys, we would always find requests to, provide some training around the topic of medication errors and to really focus and hone in on this topic. So as a result, we listened to the user community and we developed a 2-part webinar series specifically focused on medication errors. So the first part basically addresses principles for coding of medication errors, and we have very nice decision tree charts and how to sort of organize your thought process around various concepts on medication errors. So the first part is 2 hours and focuses primarily on coding principles, whereas the second part in this series is a 90-minute session, and this is more focused on interactive coding exercises, and we work and we interact with the audience, and therefore we have a limited registration for this particular workshop. Now, the topics that we address in both of these webinar sessions are taken from the MedDRA Term Selection Points to Consider document, as well as the Points to Consider companion document. And as you know, the companion document primarily focuses on medication errors, data quality, and product quality issues. So you can access this brand new webinar series if you're interested. Look under our website, meddra.org, under the training tab, and register yourself for the next upcoming session that suits your schedule. Next slide, please. Okay, so our first session, as I mentioned, this is relatively new. We conducted and debuted the first session on December 2nd, 2021. And here's just a sampling of some of the very positive feedback we've gotten from attendees. They are very pleased with the depth of detail that we speak about on the principles. They're very happy with some of the decision tree charts that we have, and a discussion by the presenters on what the thought process should be around medication errors. So it's been very well received so far. So I would recommend highly to check that out. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is a screenshot from our training registration page, and I can see here that we have the first part on general principles of medication errors coming up on April 19th in Korean, as well as April 27th in English. And then, of course, we also have it on April 7th in Spanish. So it's offered in various different languages on upcoming dates. So definitely check it out. And if your schedule is not amenable to attend these in person, you can certainly access a completed recorded webinar on our MedDRA YouTube channel, depending on your schedule. Next slide, please. Okay, so now that we've updated you on the various new training sessions and topics we have, I'd like to sort of share with you upcoming meeting times and dates. Okay, so here I am sharing with you the European User Group WHO Drug meeting, as well as the European User Group MedDRA meeting. These are scheduled to be virtual, and some of the times, as you can see, have not been shown because they are still to be announced. As you know, due to the pandemic, this situation is very dynamic and fluid, and therefore I would highly recommend for you to check our user group page for the latest information as far as the time, as well as the venue, and of course, all of the registration links will be posted as soon as they are available. The US user group is going to be held in Washington, DC, and here are the dates and times for each of these. Again, I do recommend highly that you check the user group page for updated registration links as well as times. Next slide, please. Okay, so other additional meetings besides the European and US, the Chinese MedDRA user group meeting will be conducted in the third quarter of 2022. Again, it's to be determined on the date, so the user group page is the best place to sort of check up on that. The Korean MedDRA user group meeting will also be in the fourth quarter of 2022. And of course, we will all constantly update all the information as soon as we get it on our user group page. Next slide, please. Okay, so here we are sort of showing you, and I'd like to actually highlight this and focus on this, that there's a very important webinar coming up, requesting changes to MedDRA. If you are the point person in your organization that submits change requests to MedDRA, this will be of great interest to you. Or even if you're curious to know how we process your change requests, in this session, what we do is we discuss real life change requests, and we give you the thought process that the international medical officers take, the various nuances that they take into consideration when they make a determination of whether to accept your change request or to reject your change request. So you'll see examples of both change requests that were accepted, why they were accepted, what was the reasoning behind it, examples of things to do when you submit a change request and things not to do, and what are the likelihoods of doing those things that your change request will most likely be accepted. So the next upcoming requesting changes to MedDRA webinar is coming up on April 5th, as well as April 28th in English. And so please, if you're interested, go to our training tab on our meddra.org website and register yourself for the one that's most amenable for your schedule. So we hope to see you there. It's a very interesting webinar. Next slide, please. I think this concludes my portion of the session, so I'll hand it over to you now, Anamika.
Yep, thank you, Samina. That was great. MSSO has been a bit conservative in the way we are kind of, conducting the face-to-face training. So I would like to know, because of the pandemic, I mean, we are not doing it, we're almost virtual now. So I would like to know, in your opinion, what do you think, how soon could we resume the face-to-face trainings in India? So I allow you some time to vote in. Okay. I see, like, a lot of you are not sure about it. I understand that. And then 43% of you are expecting, oh, it's actually, let me, I think, wait for a bit. It's a bit unstable. That's getting interesting. I see, Nick. So a majority of you are okay with third quarter of 2022. And after that, 33% of you are not sure. And then we have quarter four participants. I mean, some of you are happy with quarter four of 2022, and then quarter one, which is 10%. Okay, thank you for giving us those inputs. And let me launch the next poll. So in case we are conducting the face-to-face trainings in India, so how many of you are willing to travel? Like, would you like to travel to attend, or would you want it to be virtual? So I guess people are rapidly changing minds. So I see 46% of you are would like to travel, and equally 46% of you are telling me that you would prefer the webinar option. Thank you again for the inputs. And with this, we are at the question and answer session. So it's over to Uni. So Uni.
Yes, I have some questions saved up for this time, and may I maybe ask all our speakers to turn on their camera if they can, and also unmute themselves. Just preparing. So I think this time I would like to go in a different order. The first question to maybe Dr. Lamprasad.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And first question, if non-related diagnosis and symptoms are reported as verbatim, how will the coding be identified in such scenario? And vice versa, if related diagnosis and symptoms are reported together, how coding will be identified?
Yeah, very good question. During the natural language processing itself, whatever incoming narrative is analyzed for those adverse events present there. If there are no adverse events detected by NLP, it would be coded as no adverse events. And then the second part of it is if there are multiple that are combined into the same verbatim, it would identify as different adverse events and code them as multiple codes.
Yep, thank you for your answer, and I hope that also answers for the person who asked the question. And next question for Mr. Kuldeep. Does auto-coded data still needs regular coding review process to meet the study-specific coding convention requirements? Is the question. I'm sorry,
Kuldeep,
yeah, muted.
Yeah, muted.
Can you hear me? Yes. So it requires manual intervention to review the data so that the outputs will be enhanced and the machine learning techniques gets evolved more further. So to maximize the output with a maximum capacity with the quality, it requires machine learning.
Yes, thank you. And next question is a bit interesting, asking about your professional background. What has been your professional background, medical coding or machine learning, like in technology? Do you think life science professionals should also learn these technologies, or it should be done by data scientists?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Actually, it is very interesting. Yes, being a background as a medical by education in the pharma and the experience in the pharmaceutical industry, different organization, that is helping understand the technology and the requirement which I can set for the programmers to set. Definitely, it will add an edge to me or the person to get trained on the machine learning, so that we can enhance our thought process, give the logic to the programmers, so that it gives the a more accurate and appropriate output as client needs.
Thank you. And the last set of questions for Yayati. Can you please tell us more about significance of creating synonym term list in medical coding? How will it affect MedDRA upversioning?
So synonym list is something that the coder can create as to make sure that the terms that come up for manual coding gets reduced, and this is a way of performing auto-coding via the synonym list. So creating synonym list helps because during the upversioning also it brings down the number of terms that would require recoding, because if we are migrating the synonym list from the older version to the new version, that just make sure that that does not come up for manual coding. So yeah, that is the significance of synonym list. But also I just wanted to point out that the medical coder who is adding terms to the synonym list needs to be very sure that these terms are accurate enough to be added to the synonym list.
Yep, thank you. That explains a lot, and we are also getting some comments. Thanking for answering their questions. Do we have any other questions from MSSO?
Oh, and about the question that you had asked me previously, the study team that is making use of MVAT in IQVIA makes use of data impact report the most.
Oh,
so
yeah, thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
We also had some other commenting on the same thing, data impact.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Right.
I also wanted to comment on the professional background and do life science professionals learn the data science, but I'm on the opposite direction. I studied AI in my professional career, and I am now learning life sciences. So it's the other direction I came in. And I would like to say, so data life science professionals should be knowing data science enough to understand what AI brings to the table and be able to use it, right? If you can understand in which use cases AI is most effective and how to make use of it to bring the best efficiencies out of it, that is essential, right? To take this forward and make sure you're taking the best advantage of these technologies.
I have a question, if I may ask any one of the panel members, the presenters. Do you feel that this AI technology or your tools is better suited perhaps for safety reports or in the clinical trial arena? Which one do you think it is more suited for, if there's any difference at all?
I will take that. So I would say there are more challenges in the spontaneous cases, as I pointed out. And I would expect wherever those challenges are there, AI to make a bigger contribution. The reason being, we can in fact automate all the conventions, traditions that have been used by manual coders. If we can teach the system to learn it and use it, you'll get far greater efficiencies. That's my view. But clinical also, of course, it's useful.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question for both our AI presenters. I mean, it was a fantastic presentation, and you explained to us how you're teaching the machine. So I just wanted to know how much % of errors is the machine making currently, and how do you correct that? I mean, how reliable it is, like, and how much effort goes into, kind of when you review it and, make the corrections. So if you could just, a little more about it.
Allow me to answer that one. From our experience, yes, AI makes mistakes, and part of preparing and validating to deploy these systems should be how to address those mistakes, right? And typically there is, just like for a new employee, you would hold a quality check. You would have quality checks for AI systems also. And if the quality is not acceptable level, you would have to incorporate manual review on top of the AI predictions.
Okay. And how much effort is it currently involving, Dr. Ram Prasad? Like, is it a lot of effort or is it less compared to?
Yeah, it depends on the severity of the mistakes that you're seeing. For our systems, for serious cases, for example, right, we recommend that there is a manual review on top of it. For non-serious cases, our customers are using it in a touchless mode where they don't have a review on top, except for the final quality check. That's always there. It is also there for manual reviewers, right? Manual coders also have the same quality check at the end. That's for a subset of the cases that are coming in, like 5% to 10% cases. So that's the effort you're putting into quality check.
Yep. Thank you, Dr. Ram Prasad. Yuni, I actually wanted to make a request to the audience here, like since we're still on and we have the chat window open. So I would like to hear from our audience, like what are the other topics they would like to hear about in our next user group meeting. If they could, tell us in the chat box, it would be great.
Yeah, sure. And now that we were talking about jobs and professional background, and one more question came on how this AI is going to affect medical coders' job. It just came on as a comment.
Honestly, I was expecting that question would come up eventually. I think I'll allow our AI presenters to talk about that.
I can take that. So generally, when you implement AI, it is not that the manual flow is completely removed. What happens is, with the deluge of cases or the volume coming in, instead of hiring more coders, manual coders, we are automating more, and the quality goes up. Not just because it's auto-coded, it's because they're assisting. The AI is assisting manual coders to be more efficient. They can process more cases in the same amount of time. So typically the quality of life, quality of job improves over time.
I have a question, or basically a general idea. Do you foresee AI or some of the technologies that you're using within the coding scope to perhaps spill over and address other aspects in case processing besides coding, medical review, for example?
We are in fact working on AI use cases in medical review also, especially causality. So in that area also, we are able to get some efficiency gains. They are still experimental at this point because that's far more complex, the causality establishing, right? So it requires a lot more validation too. So it will take time for that to be adopted in the industry.
Yeah, I suppose the algorithms for that would be even more complex for causality.
Exactly. Currently, the way we plan to do is it's the system recommends, and with explanation, right, how the system has arrived at that causal determination, and the medical reviewer should be able to see that, and they'll start to trust the system in certain aspects when it explains this is how the decision was made, and then they speed up because of that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and one audience follow-up question. I think this has been mentioned by Mr. Kuldeep in his answer before. Is there any medical coder in your team to review the error or provide suggestion area for improvements working for this, building this machine learning, right? And
Yes. Yes. So here the coder is playing an important role along with like the technical experts, so that they can think out of the box, identify the such kind of coding which is not appropriate and which is suggested by the machines, because it is a continuous improvement process. So we have to feed the data, assess the data, and then we have to take the right appropriate coding suggestion. So that we can get in the accurate throughput, which can be reused in a future.
thank you. And one of our very user commented that I have never seen myself as just a coder, but always a medical evaluator, summarizing the information into MedDRA code. So it's different way of seeing our job, and also maybe seeking another fields, improving your job field in the era of AI and machine learning, I guess.
And definitely, it adds some perspective to your regular job. How you are looking forward to have the another angle apart from that you are doing regularly. So it's definitely this would be an extra step that we have to take forward. So by which we can improve our regular coding as well as the as well as the turnaround time.
Thank you. I think this is coming to the end of our session, Anamika.
Yeah, I think if there are no more questions, then we can give back some time to our audience. I know all of them are busy, and so I'd like to thank all of you, especially like the speakers today, Dr. Ram Prasad, Kuldeep, Yayati, for making time today, and for these wonderful presentations. Thank you, Brian and Samina. It was quite early in the US, but you made it. So thank you, and thank you, Uni, for staying up late and making sure that things went well. And I would like to thank all of the users. It was wonderful meeting all of you cyberspace today, and look forward to our next Indian user group meeting, and hopefully that would be face-to-face next year, fingers crossed. So have a nice day, remaining part of your day, and stay safe and be well. So thank you, Uni, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Nice to see you.
Just before we wrap it up, I have posted the survey link in our chat. Now that we have like 5 seconds more, maybe I can publicize, and you can take time to fill out our survey format. It's also going to your email box after a few hours, but you can do it right away now. And this is the end of our session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.